Hey everybody, it's Shaman Sister Sin, and you're listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by shamanspiritcenter.com and littleshaman.org. That's me, the Little Shaman. Today I wanted to talk to you about something that becomes an issue eventually in narcissistic relationships, and that is the challenges that are facing the aging narcissist. Age can be a funny thing when it comes to narcissism. There are some narcissistic people who seem to, quote, age out of many of their behaviors as they get older. You might see a change from the more hysterical or violent behaviors they displayed when they were younger. They are still narcissistic and their motivations or mindsets don't usually change, but sometimes the behaviors do. This is probably why some seem to evolve from overt to covert and things like that. It could simply be that the behavior has changed over time. This may be because they are maturing, even if at a much, much slower pace than someone who's not narcissistic, and it may be because the people around them are less willing to tolerate these behaviors as time goes by. It's one thing to deal with a tantrum from somebody who's 25. It's another to deal with a tantrum from somebody who is 55. People are generally much more forgiving of these things when somebody is young. As the person ages but their behavior stays the same, we often find that the people around them take a much harder view of it. And of course, the people who have been listening to these tantrums for 20 years are just finally getting tired of it. We also find that people are much more accepting of the narcissist's tales of woe when the narcissist is younger. If someone is 25 or even 30, it is possible that they've just been dealt a crummy hand for a little while and that's why they don't have themselves together. It's reasonable to look at their life and say, yes, I can see you went through a divorce or you had a bad childhood or something like that, and that's why you're in the position that you're in. However, as the narcissistic person gets older, it becomes harder and harder to justify these things. When someone's over 40, it's not really reasonable to believe that their problems now are because of things that happened 20 years ago or longer. Whether this is true or not doesn't really matter because the perception of those around them is going to be much less forgiving. It is absolutely never too late to start over or change your life, but pathologically narcissistic people don't really want to change anything. As they get older, it becomes easier and easier to see this. They're simply trotting out the same stories, excuses, and conspiracies they've been using for the last however many decades to explain their lack of success in relationships, with jobs, or just in general. The scenery never changes, and no matter how much help they are given by any number of people, the situation never gets better. People begin to realize that this is a person who not only does not actually want to change anything, but a person who will not even do small things in order to make the situation better. They start to question all of the narcissist excuses and stories. They start to wonder who the problem really is. Narcissists that are able to change their narrative will often do so in these situations. The villain in their story will often change, and their behavior may change in some ways as well, but if you pay attention, you will see that the basic story never changes. There's always a bad guy or a bad situation. There's always a reason that the narcissist cannot be the amazing person with the amazing life that they know they really are. Someone always ruins it for them. Someone always sabotages their plans. Something always messes things up. Or alternately, they're always overcoming insurmountable odds and perilous oppression to be the impressive victor, or they're always the hero of the story somehow. They were either always the best or they were always the worst, somehow, some way. And this story never changes. The longer people know the pathologically narcissistic person, the clearer this becomes. People eventually realize that this person always has an excuse. They always have someone to blame, or they always have an angle. It starts to become impossible to believe, and eventually no one does anymore. This is why narcissists often change groups of friends or partners regularly. As they get older, this can become harder to do. It can become harder to meet people and harder to manipulate or impress them as the narcissist gets older. Another complicating factor can be that the average age of the people who will readily believe the narcissist stories of conspiracy and blame or their tales designed to impress people has often gotten younger, but the narcissist has gotten older. In some cases, it may no longer be appropriate or possible for them to be around people so much younger than they are, but the people their own age may not be as receptive to their hard luck stories or heroic self-aggrandizing narratives as people who are younger. They may not be as sympathetic or as easily impressed as younger people might be either. And then there are the narcissistic people who are not able to evolve or change anything at all, no matter how small it is. They can't change the narrative, they can't evolve their behavior. They continue to behave the same way no matter how old they get. Whether they are 15 or 25 or 55, the behavior remains the same. This happens because the more narcissistic somebody is, the more rigid and inflexible their narcissism is. If it is inflexible enough, they may actually be unable to adapt their behavior to a new or changing situation, even if the behavior is completely detrimental to them or even ruining their life. For example, a narcissist who has nowhere left to go but cannot seem to stop behaving in a way that results in them ultimately being removed from the place they were living, despite being warned repeatedly and despite having nowhere else to go because of the same behavior. After decades of this, some narcissists will learn coping mechanisms to deal with these situations, but others will not. Instead of learning different or more successful manipulation tactics, they simply keep trying the same ones over and over, even if they no longer work. For example, a narcissist that was able to manipulate or attract people with their looks may still attempt to use this method even though it's no longer successful. Or a narcissist that was able to create sympathy in other people because they were in frail health may still attempt to use this even though they're no longer ill. A narcissist that had a claim to fame once upon a time may still attempt to impress people with this claim even though it doesn't matter or it's not important anymore. Aging can create a crisis in the lives of narcissistic people because they may find they're not able to use the same manipulations on people, or that these manipulations no longer work the way that they once did. They may begin to panic because they don't know other ways to get what they need. As we discussed, some may learn new manipulations eventually, but many do not. They're simply stuck in a cycle of the same behavior, but without getting the same results. This is part of the rigidity and inflexibility of their narcissism, that even though they are not getting the same results, they're not able to change. This can cause them increasing amounts of anxiety and stress, so instead of their behavior getting better, it can actually get worse as they get older and their strategies for getting what they want start to fail. If they are no longer strong or beautiful or impressive or able to garner sympathy, they feel powerless to get what they need and unable to come up with a new strategy. One of the most stressful situations involving aging narcissists is when it's an elderly parent or caregiver. People may feel trapped into these situations and unable to refuse because there's nobody else to do it. Others may be guilted or pressured into doing it by the parent or by other family members. This can be made worse by the fact that people who don't understand the situation may be very judgmental of someone's decision to cut off contact with family, particularly their parents. If you find yourself in this situation, remember that you are under no obligation to do anything for anybody that has treated you badly, is not respectful of you or your time, or behaves ungratefully. Period. If you choose to help them, that's your decision, and don't forget that. You're not trapped and you don't have to do it. If they have no one else to take care of them, that's their responsibility. It's their problem. You may choose to take care of them because of this, and if you are choosing to do it out of the goodness of your heart, that's your decision and no one else's. One of the things that can make this more bearable is to remember that the way they behave is not personal. They were this way before you ever came along. It has nothing to do with you. I'm not just saying that because I want you to feel better. It's really true. It has nothing to do with you at all. This is who this person is. This is a person that knows no other way to behave and who has the mindset of a child, a small child. They have no power except what other people give them. The only power they really even have in that situation is over other people's emotions, and that's only if it's given to them. They can't hurt you at all once you realize the truth of these things. That's why learning to use the gray rock method and the art of not reacting are so important. It puts you in charge of yourself, which is the one thing in this situation that you can control. You can't control other people, but you can choose who you let in your life and how you let them affect you. And once again, you don't have to do anything you don't want to do. If you choose to do it, know what you're choosing. This person is going to be the same person they've always been. If they've never been grateful, appreciative, or considerate, they're not going to suddenly be that way now. If they've always been abusive and horrible, that's likely not going to change. Adjust your expectations to be realistic and learn not to take it personally. That's really the only way to manage the situation. And once again, you don't have to do anything. It's your choice. I hope this clears a few things up for you. As always, I look forward to your comments, questions, and suggestions, so please keep those coming. I take appointments online, over the phone, through email, through text, via Skype, and Messenger. So if you're interested in speaking with me one-on-one, you can visit littleshaman.org and click the book an appointment tab to go ahead and do that. I teach workshops a few times a month, so if you're interested in seeing what we have going on right now and signing up for one of those, you can do that on littleshaman.org as well. You've been listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by shamanspiritcenter.com and littleshaman.org. That's me, the Little Shaman. May the Great Spirit bless you and have a wonderful day.